Stephen King was born in 1947 in Portland, Maine, USA. He initially began writing short stories in his childhood. Throughout his teaching career at Hampton Academy, he was writing short stories for men's magazines. He wrote his first big story, Carrie, in 1974. It was also his first film adaptation, which was made in 1976. Stephen threw the manuscript of Carrie in the bin because he thought it was too big for a short story. His wife, Tabitha, found it and persuaded him to get it published because she loved it. Stephen then took her advice and then went to get it published. Since then, he has become one of the most famous writers in the world. He has written huge successes such as The Shining, Salem's Lot, The Stand, The Green Mile, Misery, and many more. These have also become famous film adaptations. His work have gained millions of passionate fans around the world, and I'm one of them. I've been a huge fan since the age of 13, and he remains my favourite writer of all time. I love his scary and dramatic stories with his very connective characters. What I want to know is what other fans love about Stephen King and how passionate they are. To find out the answer, I'm going to be interviewing some fans and listen to their points of view on the works from the master of Macabre, Stephen King. So how long have you been a fan of Stephen King?
About 10 years, I'd say, since I was about 11 years old.
Excellent, excellent. And what is your favourite novel by him?
I haven't really got an actual favourite one because he's such a good writer. I've got like 3 main ones. I've got The Mist, I've got The Green Mile, and I've got 11/22/63. For The Mist, it's definitely going to be the actual story behind it. It plays on the emotions of people. Like if there's something like you don't know of, it's the unknown, so you don't really know what's behind The Mist, so it freaks you out a little bit more. With The Green Mile, it's all supernatural. And it takes a different take on the actual story of death row, because it makes you think, that's different, and it's just strange, which is Stephen King's best. And for 11/22/63, it's got time travelling, and I love time travel, so it's just great that he's actually ventured into something that's different for his work, because he's never done that before.
Excellent, excellent. And what do you think is his best film adaptation?
I'd have to say Green Mile, just because Green Mile is one of my favourite books. Because of the story itself, that they've changed very little, but they've changed little things to make it better. Like they've got rid of certain aspects which confuse some people, but they've kept the main pure story. And plus the actors they got for them were superb, and you can actually visualise what Stephen King wrote as the actors.
For a few years, since I saw the film 1408, and then I realised it was a book by Stephen King, and then I read the book and saw a few more films, then read the books and then saw some more films, and it just went on from there really. My favourite book is 1408, which is actually a short story within a selection of books called Stephen King Goes to the Movies, and it's probably one of the first Stephen King books I ever read, and it's just stuck with me ever since. I think the fact that it's mainly one character, that the story is about like one singular character, I think it gives more of an intensity into the story because it's his ordeal, and it just kind of makes you understand the story a bit more through his point of view, as well as there's some really good themes throughout it which can be relevant to other situations as well, which are really good.
Fantastic, fantastic. And your favourite film adaptation? What's your favourite film adaptation?
That would be Misery. Which, because I think it's just a really quite a good film within itself. I think it complements the book, and the book complements the film, so it's quite good.
Since I was about 12, my dad got me a book of his, and it's just kind of been one of those things that I've loved ever since.
Excellent, excellent. And what is your favourite book by him?
Well, like I said, probably the first one I actually got, The Shining. It was, to this day, it's still the single most haunting book I've ever read. It's terrifying at points, and I don't know, it's kind of like the book that got me into horror. I think it's one of those things which has a kind of timeless horror to it. I mean, even in this day and age, the idea of being in this isolated situation with not even paranormal, just psychological things that are affecting you and others around you. I mean, it's genuinely terrifying. No one likes the idea of isolation, and I think that it still manages to be scary. So.
Excellent. And what is your favourite film adaptation by Stephen King?
I'd have to say Pet Sematary. It's a fantastic book, and they made it into, in my opinion, an even better film. It's on par with other horrors that were around at the time, Evil Dead, and they just had so much of a fright element to them. I think for the most part it manages to maintain what the book wanted to be about, and I think that the kind of liberties it took with the book were done to great effect. Like I said, it's a genuinely frightening film to watch, and I think it actually holds up stronger than the book because of the visual style of it. It looks amazing.
As you've just seen, I have had 3 very interesting interviews with fans about what their favourite books and films are by Stephen King and how long they've been a fan of him for, with very enthusiastic points of view, I must say. Now, my next stage was trying to find people who aren't fans of King's works so I can get 2 sets of points of view across. But unfortunately this has been very difficult, because out of all the people I talked to, they either like him or never even heard of him at all, which is fine. So I've only found 2 people that have flaws with King's works. Let's hear what they have to say.
Even though he's a good writer, and I appreciate most of what he does, the problem that I have with his works is that he tries to tell too many stories at once, sometimes in one novel. And the problem with that is that you lose focus of the main story, you lose focus of the characters that you've invested so much time in, and it just doesn't work for me personally, because I'd rather have that one straight story rather than having everything all over the place, which just gets boring and then ruins the whole book for you.
What would you say is your least favourite novel by him?
I'd say that'd be Cujo, because even though I really like the main story, the relationship between Brett and his dog, and the way that falls apart due to the dog's rabies, I absolutely hate the side story of his dad's wife having the his dad having the affair with the next door neighbour. That completely ruins it for me.
What would you say is your least favourite film adaptation by him?
I'd have to say it, because it just falls apart. The characters that you got to know so well in the first part become absolute dumbasses. They just turn into horrible characters that you don't really care about at all. And to be honest, even though a few of them die in the end, you just want them all to die because you just don't care anymore.
I enjoy the movies, but I don't really like the books because I find that the language in them is quite simplistic. There's not a lot of detail to help with the visualization of what's going on.
That's fair enough. So what is your favourite film adaptation then?
I have a Misery or Carrie, because they've got such interesting characters in them. Both of them, they're like quite strong female characters, but they're also very crazy people. They're really interesting people.
Some really good points of view. I really like the points of view. And my very last question is, can you understand why fans are very passionate about him?
Of course I can, yeah. It's because he's often compared to a modern day Charles Dickens, and even though that's a massive statement to make, people are right, because he invests so much time and effort into his characters and his settings and indeed the stories themselves that you lose yourself in his books. And that's not everything. That's not something you get with the writer these days. Usually you just read a book of theirs straight away. With Stephen King, everything sticks with you. He can change the way that you think.
I think because his movies are so diverse, he's got such a range for a lot of different people, from his horror and then also with his I suppose a thriller, really, things like Green Mile, and then you've got The Shawshank Redemption, and that's more I guess that's quite emotive, that people can relate to the main character. So
now my last question is, so how much do the works of Stephen King mean to you? How much do you like his books and films?
Well, I'd say quite a bit, to be honest, because as a writer I've used him to influence my own work, to be honest. Like for an older novel I did, I influenced it with The Mist, because it played on people's emotions and on the big unknown, which was good because that kind of storytelling is something I want to try and do in the future because he's massively, superbly good for his work, to be honest.
They kind of represented like my first interaction and involvement with horror, so they've kind of got, to me at least, this timeless quality. You know, they will always be the thing that got me involved in horror, and they will always be, I think they're just so well written, the books, that, I don't know, it's like they cover on so many different subjects of fear.
I do think he's really, really clever person. I like the way he kind of gets inside people's heads and makes them think of things later on, which, even though it's written down in text, it still makes you really visualise like the kind of threats and horrors within the book. And I think it takes someone really clever to be able to do that. And I think Stephen King being that kind of writer it makes him much more popular and way ahead of a lot of other horror writers as well.
So, throughout this documentary, we found out from 3 fans about how passionate they are about Stephen King's stories, and also we found out some very interesting points of view from people who have flaws with them. To this day, Stephen King is one of the most popular writers in the world and will always remain my absolute favourite. And you know what? If you're not a fan of Stephen King's works, that's okay. Everyone has different passions in life. Take care and stay scared.